What is up, everybody? Chris Fluke here, Chris Fluke Podcast, episode number 96. Today, we tackle the question, why work out, right? Why should you work out? Why should you care enough about your own physical health to, challenge yourself, to get into the gym, go through some conflict, go through some personal struggle, right? Why should you do that? Now, I was at a conference this past weekend, and some great speakers there. The National Strength and Conditioning Association puts on these great conferences, and I was able to get to one up here in the Northeast here at Westchester University. And there's a few things that really stood out to me. One of them was a man that I know very well, Mark Nutting, man, great guy. I had him on the podcast before. He spoke about motivational interviewing, and basically what you're doing with that style of conversation with dialogue is that you're trying to get to the root cause, the root of what really motivates an individual. You don't ask these binary yes/no questions. You ask things like, how did that make you feel? Oh, I understand that might be an issue. What could we do to kind of get over that, right? You don't say, do you like to work out? No. Do you eat well? No. Those are just boring yes/no answers that don't really get into anything. You have to figure out why they don't eat well, right? You have to ask questions in a way that really get them thinking and really get them exploring their own personal daily habits in order for them to make change, right? And sometimes there's going to be conflict with that, right? Whether or not it's conflict between you and them or just some sort of personal conflict. Because in order for change to take place, there needs to be conflict. There needs to be some sort of struggle. There needs to be some sort of, challenge there, right? The second part of it was the University of Rutgers University had two of their staff there, two staffers, we'll call them. I'm not sure what their job titles were, but basically their job was to get kids more active on that campus, right? And they found out that just kids weren't moving. They weren't using the facilities. So they devised a program to get them moving. They used, the guidelines from the American College of Sports Medicine, exercise as medicine approach, where they wanted their students to get 150 minutes per week of activity. This activity could be gardening, it could be walking, it could be cleaning up at the farm like I did today. I look at my Fitbit watch, I have 60 zone minutes, which means I got 60 minutes of non-exercise activity here where my heart rate was in a certain zone. That would qualify towards that 150. It's the non-exercise activities, right? They want 150 of those, right? And the perfect scenario would be if 75 of those minutes were intentional exercise, where you said, I'm going to go out for a fast walk or a 10-minute jog, or I'm going to go strength train for 25 minutes. So ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine, recommends 150 minutes of physical activity, ideally 75 of those being intentional exercise, and there being 2 days of strength training in there, okay? That was all covered at this conference. And when as I start to put together some of my thoughts here, and I get it out my weekly newsletter called The Weekly Word. If you like it, go to chrisfluke.net to subscribe. How about that for a shameless plug? Basically, I send out a weekly newsletter every Sunday, and that was part of it. That was part of the question, right? We had to figure out, what made, why work out, right? Why should you work out? Why should you be physically active? And when it comes down to it, man, we talked about some of the stats. Well, we'll go into some of the stats here. 1 in 5, less than 20% of students at Rutgers say got that 150 minutes of daily activity, right? At the age of 2 now, we're talking about babies. If you're obese, you have a 75% chance of being obese as an adult. If you're in middle school, that raises to 87%. If you're obese and leaving high school, it's over 90%. The unfortunate part of all this is that the solution is to not really get overweight or obese in the first place. And there's some of these things that happen in early adult or early childhood that you just don't even know. Our daughter's in this category. She is just a bigger girl. She was since she was born. She's physically active. She's a strong little girl. But when we take her in there, according to BMI, she's overweight. So am I, all right? Maybe it's a genetic quality that I passed on to my wonderful little girl, all right? But basically what this is saying is obese kids become obese adults, all right? And there was a snarky answer from somebody, I remember reading this a couple years ago. They asked a question at a conference, like, hey, excuse me, what is the best thing to do if you're obese? He said, don't get obese in the first place. Because once that happens, a whole myriad of problems start to happen, right? And unfortunately, us fitness professionals, we're doing a poor job getting people into the gym to train. We're doing a poor job encouraging people to get outside and go for a walk. We're doing a poor job of relaying these messages to the masses in order for them to be motivated enough to care enough to take care of their bodies and work out. So, one thing that we could do to kind of solve this youth inactivity, this youth overweight, this youth obesity trend here is to show them the way as adults, all right? You know, I was reading the book Maps of Meaning by Jordan Peterson, and it's 1986. He writes a letter to his dad. He started this book maybe in the early 80s. It took him over 10 years, I think, to put it together. So he wrote a letter to his dad saying, I don't know where I'm going here. I'm about to stumble upon a great discovery, I feel, but I'm just kind of lost where I am. And the letter goes to him discussing how he was able to learn things growing up. He learned grammar. He was able to carry conversations without having an understanding of what grammar really was, what proper grammar was. Why? Because he modeled what his father did. He went on to talk about these values and beliefs that he couldn't explain, but he did things anyway because he was modeling the behavior of his father. Us parents, we need to model a positive behavior so our kids could see that and that they could follow our lead and kind of see like, hey, this is how we're supposed to do things. We should eat well. We should exercise. We should strength train twice a week. We should just ask 150 minutes of activity, right? You do, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, right? That's 20. You multiply that by 7. That's 140 minutes right there. And that's only two 10-minute bouts a week. You throw in a couple strength training sessions on top of that, you're at your mark. We need to model this behavior, all right? Because if these obese kids, these overweight kids become overweight or obese adults, then we start to lose certain things that we love, us Americans love. We love our freedom and we love our independence. You think about being injured. Somebody has a cast on their leg, maybe on both of their legs. Are they independent? Are they able to do the things that they want to do, or do they have to rely on other people? They have to rely on them, right? When you're injured because of lack of physical fitness, you have a fall because your balance is poor, you become dependent on others. You lose your freedom. If you're overweight, you don't have the energy to do the things that you want to do. You don't have the energy to be out all day, walking around with your mom, your dad, your kids, your grandkids. Your body starts to hurt. You get grumpy. The elderly. The stronger we could get now, at whatever age you are, the stronger you're going to be when you're 70 or 80 years old. All right? So when you're in your 20s, your 30s, and 40s, why should you work out? Because you want to be a strong 60, 70, 80-year-old. You still want to be able to walk and garden and do whatever you want to do at those ages. If you're frail in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, you're going to be incredibly frail in your senior citizen years. All right? These ideas are not earth-shattering. I read a book written in 1962 that talked about improving your strength in your 30s correlates to strength in your 60s. I've talked about it on podcasts before, all right? Now, why don't people want to work out? These are problems, right? And these problems are in our society. Carl Jung believed all personal problems are relevant to society. So anybody that is struggling, anybody that, does have these issues, they don't feel like working out. They need to talk about them because let's say somebody overcame these struggles. They should be talking about that too. They should be there to talk to people about it and encourage them, not to tell them how great they are because they did it, but just talk about the same struggles that they had, because your personal problems are relevant in order for us to make society a better place, right? It goes back to, I don't know if it was Aristotle or whatever else, Socrates, one of these guys, is that they wanted everybody to be strong, intelligent civilians because that was going to make society better. We need to keep that in mind. Now, when we get going to the lack of motivation, I think it kind of falls back. I think a large part of it has to do with the denial or the failure of individual responsibility, not taking accountability for your behaviors. We say things like, oh no, that's not the case with me. I don't need to sleep that much. I could get 4 hours and I'm okay. Really? You sure about that? Because that's like 1% of the population maybe, all right? There's a good chance that's not you. Well, that's not how it happens. Really? Every time you drink some coffee, this is me speaking now, this is what I do. I end up finding myself a little sweet treat to go with that, right? You start making excuses up. You start blaming others. You start blaming your schedule. You start blaming, your family, your work, your job. You can't say no to things. You don't take accountability. And these lies that you tell yourself, they weaken you as an individual. They weaken you. And with every lie that you tell, all of these little excuses that you make, you just become a weaker individual mentally. And in the end of that, you're going to be not only a weak physical specimen, you're going to be weak mentally, all right? And as you reduce the meaning that your personal meaning, your sense of worth, your life will suffer, and that spiral will continue to go down and down and down into a bad place, all right? It's that snowball effect. Once it starts going, it goes. The inverse of this is also true. If you take responsibility of your actions and you start to make changes, certain things are keystone habits. These are habits that start to affect all these other areas of life. Going for a 20-minute walk before you eat might prevent you from eating so much. Strength training, 1 day a week, might make you think about that post-workout meal. Like, yeah, I got to get some protein in me. Maybe you're not going to eat all those carbs and eat that pizza. You might get some steak. How about that? All right? So, exercise, physical fitness, keystone habits. These things start to trickle off into other areas of your life, and it's going to make you a better person for it, all right? Incorporate positive things, and that snowball effect will work for you in a positive direction. And as I was finishing Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, this was, I think, 479 pages of psychology text. It took me months to get through. I read 10 pages a day, all right? So that's 47 days. Plus I was on vacation in there that I didn't read. Basically 48 days plus a week. I mean, it took me over 2 months probably the way that it went, because I missed a day here or there, right? This book took me over 2 months, and at the end of it, he shares a quote, the Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. You guys are all physically capable of doing great things. Other human beings have worked out. Other human beings have gotten 150 minutes a week. They've gotten 2 strength training days in. That's within you. You could do that. That's not asking too much. It's not asking too much out of your schedule. We do such a bad job as fitness pros where we're going to discuss whether or not CrossFit's good for you, whether or not HIIT training is the way to go, breaking down the Tabata protocol, things like that, whether or not you want to train in the Olympic lifts or the power lifts or this or that or the other thing, right? We spend so much time talking about that garbage, and we should be spending that time just encouraging people to get out and move. Movement is medicine, right? In the Gospel of Thomas, my favorite part of that, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. It will keep you alive. It will keep you healthy. It will keep you anti-frail, right? If you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. Your health eventually will destroy you if you let it. That is all for today, boys and girls. Why should you work out? Freedom, independence. Your life means something. You mean something to other people. They might depend on you. You don't want to depend on them all the time. Get after it, man. Hope you guys like this. Peace, everybody. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, YouTube. I don't know where else this thing's found, but it's out there, man. Google Play, maybe. I think is what it's called. All right, guys. Chris Flick Podcast, man. I got the website, chrisflick.net. Every week I put my weekly word up there. It's a newsletter. If you want that thing delivered directly to your inbox, sign up at the bottom of the weekly word post. Blogs there, podcast stuff is there, gym information is there. Got a big camp tomorrow, youth fitness camp, baby. 25 kids are signed up. I'm excited. From ages 7 to 11, we got 25 kids coming out on Good Friday, and it's gonna be a good Friday, man. Hope you guys enjoy it, man. Happy Easter, y'all. Peace.